Over 19,500 Ukrainian children have been forcefully deported by Russia since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. And until now, Kyiv managed to bring back only just over 1,000 of them. Ukraine's Commissioner for Human Rights says once taking to the Russian territory, they not only have their identities changed and official papers reissued to erase any connection to Ukraine, they also have to undergo some sort of military education.
The step of militarization, all the Ukrainian children must be member of youth military organizations of Russian Federation. The main goal for Russians for deportation of Ukrainian children is grow up in a new generation of Russian army.
In March 2023, the International Criminal Court in The Hague issued an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russia's Children Commissioner Maria Lvova-Belova, accusing them of overseeing the unlawful deportation of Ukrainian children.
Germany's biggest industrial union reached an agreement over a wage dispute within the country's metal and electrical industry. The new agreement by trade union IG Metall stipulated a wage increase amounting to 5.5% over the next 25 months.
Wir haben in einer extrem schwierigen Situation mit sehr weit auseinanderliegenden Positionen die ganze Nacht hart und intensiv gerungen und wir haben Lösungen geschaffen.
Workers initially demanded a 7% wage increase over a period of 12 months. In response, employers had offered a wage increase of 3.6% over a period of 27 months.
Wir haben in vielen Fällen die Regelungen, die wir heute schon haben, die seit 2018 in der Tarifwelt vereinbart worden sind, weiterentwickelt.
Millions of employees at companies including Mercedes-Benz, BMW and Siemens will be affected by the agreement. Hundreds of thousands of employees across Germany have taken part in warning strikes over the last few weeks. The head of the Church of England resigned after an investigation found that he failed to tell police about serial physical and sexual abuse by a volunteer at Christian summer camps as soon as he became aware of it. Pressure had been growing on the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, since Thursday, when his refusal to accept responsibility for his failure to report the abuse in England and in Africa in 2013 kindled anger about a lack of accountability within the English Church. The news comes against the backdrop of widespread historical sexual abuse in the Church of England. A 2022 report by the Independent Inquiry Child Sexual Abuse Organisation found that deference to the authority of priests, taboos surrounding the discussion of sexuality, and a culture that gave more support to alleged perpetrators than their victims helped make the Church of England a place where abusers could hide. The Biden administration said that Israel made good but limited progress in increasing the flow of humanitarian aid to Gaza, and that it therefore would not limit arms transfers to Israel as it threatened to do a month ago. The US had initially set a deadline last month for Israel to send more food and aid into Gaza or risk scaled-back military support. However, relief groups say conditions are worse than at any point in the 13-month-old war. The decision from the US, Israel's key ally and largest provider of arms and other military aid, comes despite aid organizations declaring that Israel has failed to meet US demands to allow greater humanitarian access to the Gaza Strip. 8 international aid groups said in a report that Israel failed to meet the US criteria and in fact took steps that dramatically worsened the situation on the ground, particularly in northern Gaza.
The Azeri President used his opening speech at COP29 to launch what has been described as a strong attack on Western governments that buy his gas and yet criticize his country for its fossil fuel-dependent economy. President Aliyev used this platform in front of world leaders to repeat that Azerbaijan's natural resources were, quote, a gift from God.
Every natural resource, whether it's oil, gas, wind, sun, gold, silver, copper, all that are natural resources. And countries should not be blamed for having them and should not be blamed for bringing these resources to the market, because the market needs them, the people need them. So this is my message, and as a president of COP29, of course, we will be a strong advocate for green transition, and we are doing it, but at the same time, we must be realistic.
The Azeri President's words created a buzz among COP attendees. We spoke to some of them to hear their reaction.
He is right and not right in a way, because it really is God's plan to have the natural resources in certain countries. And the fact that he's pointed out the hypocrisy is something we should really appreciate. It is true. But at the same time, we cannot deny that fossil fuels are harmful. So what do we do in return? We really have to make sure that the green energy transformation also gathers traction.
The only way everybody moves is if you know that it's done fairly. And he's right that the signals that need to happen, of course, need to happen from the very, very big polluters, those that have been polluting for over 100 years. And so what the United States does, what the European Union does, what the UK does, matters, because that sends a signal.
Aliyev's speech set the tone for the leaders gathering ahead of the tough negotiations on the details of the final agreement. Giorgia Orlandi for Euronews in Baku.
The humanitarian situation in Gaza Strip remains critical and could deteriorate further. That's according to the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine, UNRWA. Speaking to Euronews in Brussels, the director of UNRWA in Gaza, Scott Anderson, called upon all parties to the conflict to respect the sanctity of safe places for civilians.
Schools, and we would reiterate that call.
Give us a full picture here. What is the situation?
Well, there's nowhere safe in Gaza. That's been said by many people. I would echo that.
Including the safe zones.
Including the safe zones. And unfortunately, all parties to the conflict are not respecting the sanctity of sites that should be safe for civilians, which includes hospitals and includes schools, both UNRWA and PA schools. And we would reiterate that call that all parties to the conflict respect the sanctity of those places so that civilians can find safety for themselves and for their families.
Anderson also responded to past allegations that his agency was too lenient with Hamas, which the EU designates as a terrorist organization. He stated that UNRWA took swift action after discovering that some of its employees were linked to Hamas.
Can you say today that UNRWA has thrown out all Hamas operatives?
Well, no, I don't think anybody could say anything with certainty about any of their workforce anywhere. We have over 13,000 people. We do take the neutrality very seriously, as shown by the Commissioner General's very swift action. But no, I can't with certainty say that's done. I don't have evidence of more. I can say that. And if we did, we would take action.
You can watch the full interview on the situation in Gaza on Thursday and online on euronews.com.
The EU top diplomat Kaakalis has said the bloc must back Ukraine against Russia for as long as it takes and persuade the United States that its strategic interests in China are tied up in the outcome of the war. The Estonian politician spoke on Tuesday during the hearing which he must pass to be appointed as EU's foreign policy chief. Her comments come as questions continue to be raised following the re-election of Donald Trump.
Please note that the total time of this...
We will seek connections, we will seek meetings with incoming president-elect and his team to form common policies, because what I see globally around the world is that we are the strongest allies and we have to keep sticking together. If United States is worried about what happens in South China Sea, they should be most worried about how we react to Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. So it is also in their interest to do so.
Kaakalis is set to take over the top EU post from Josep Borrell, but concerns grow if the EU will continue to receive Washington's support on Ukraine. Beijing is being accused of giving Moscow very substantial help to beef up its war machine. With Donald Trump set to take over the White House, fears continue to mount over a likely change in U.S. policy.
final exam day for future European commissioners if no last-minute challenges arise. 6 designated vice presidents faced hearings at the European Parliament, with Italian Raffaele Fitto of the ultra-conservative ECR group sparking particular debate as the nominee for cohesion policy. A former European Affairs Minister and 3-time MEP, Fitto faced criticism for lacking clarity on whether some cohesion funds should be redirected to defence and security.
Non ha detto sono a favore o non sono a favore, lui si è limitato a dire ad oggi non è previsto, quindi non è possibile ad oggi utilizzare i fondi per questo. Noi ci aspettavamo un passo in più.
Another key issue was whether to centralize the use of cohesion funds.
Które słyszymy od wielu tygodni, dotyczące właśnie zmniejszenia roli regionów w kreowaniu tej polityki, są niepokojące. I dzisiaj na to pytanie jednoznacznych odpowiedzi nie otrzymaliśmy.
Led by the Green Group, the final decision on Fitto has been postponed. However, it appears to be more of a tactic among political factions. If one candidate is rejected, others may follow, further delaying the formation of the new Commission.